Welcome to Between the Stacks, After Hours, a podcast made possible by Athens-Limestone County Public Library. Each episode brings you a conversation, a cocktail, and some contemplation about a notable author and their work. So grab your favorite beverage and let's go between the stacks, After Hours.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Between the Stacks After Hours. I am Jen Baxter, the Athens-Limestone County Library Director.
And I'm Anna Clem.
Yay! Okay, so today we are going to talk about
David Sedaris.
And he is a prolific author. I mean, I would say prolific. He's got like 10 books.
About 10 books, yeah.
And he has a ton of news clips, interviews, articles. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could have gone on and on and on reading about David
Yeah, there's
Sedaris.
A wealth of information on him for sure.
It really is. Okay, so today, as you all know, as our listeners know, what we like to do is pick an author and we do a deep dive on said author. And we also choose a cocktail to go along with our author of the episode. I was going to say the sode.
The sode.
I don't know if
You're
anybody...
so cool.
And our author of the sode.
Yeah, so we've done Shirley Jackson was our first.
Yes.
And we did the Dirty Shirley.
That was fun.
And then we had Alain de Botton.
I don't remember that.
We did the Lady Killer.
The Lady Killer.
And it was strong.
It was.
And then Mark Manson. With the bourbon punch, which was
that was
equally
fun.
as strong.
Yeah. We've had a good time so far. So tell us about the cocktail tonight, Anna.
Okay, tonight we're going to do the Naughty Elf cocktail. And it is to pay homage to David Sedaris' Santaland Diary. Mm-hmm. And that is really what blasted him into fame. He became much more well-known after that was published.
Yes, I read an NPR article about it and listened to
He reads it every year.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
On, it says NPR, correct?
Yeah. And apparently he was 35 at the time. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh my God, I'm 37. It's not too late.
It's not too late. Yeah, and it's funny because when I first read the Santaland Diaries or listened to it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is Elf, right? Will Ferrell?
Yeah.
I was like, surely that's where they got the idea from, but I don't think so. But.
Yeah, it's pretty much the opposite of Elf. I was going to see how many books he really has. I think it's 12. I think it's 12 books.
Wow. Right. Okay, so we got to make this drink.
Yes, let's make the drink.
Okay.
We want to have the drink in hand while we're talking. All right, you said 2...
So we need 2 ounces of cranberry juice.
Okay. And then an ounce of...
And then an ounce of red grapefruit juice. Oh, I have it. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. I see it.
Shout out to Proc's Beverages. They had everything I needed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one time.
You can send my discount code, Proc. You can send
I don't remember which drink it was. It was the Lady Killer, and I had to go to like 3 stores.
That was a tough one. That one had the gin in it, didn't it? It was really good. Yeah. Gin, did it have the gin in it?
It did have the gin, but I'm Jen. So Jen says it had the gin. Okay. All right, so we have cranberry juice, grapefruit juice.
Red grapefruit juice.
I know we have triple sec. We have orange liqueur.
Yes.
And the coup de grace.
The Spiced Rum.
Aye, aye, Captain. Okay, it smells good. Just throw a little extra in there for posterity's sake.
Why not?
Okay, and there's also...
it called for Sprite, but I got the 7-Up, as my grandmother would say.
7-Up Heads Up, baby. I think we used to play a game called 7-Up Heads Up when I was in elementary school.
Yeah, my daughter just learned it this past week, and so it was the best thing ever.
Okay, and I know it called for pomegranate liqueur, but since we didn't have that, I did find on my shelf at home this grenadine, which I always thought was just cherry, but apparently it's cherry and pomegranate. So I thought maybe just a splash.
Oh, for sure.
To get the correct flavor, flavor profile.
It also says you can put sprinkles around the rim.
Yeah, we're going to opt out on that.
Yeah, but since we're drinking out of a Christmas, tumblers.
I mean, we had to.
It's fitting.
All right, so it's not exactly Christmas time, but Christmas is coming. And since Santaland rocketed him into fame, we're featuring a Christmas cocktail in Christmas tumblers. All right, you ready?
Yeah, ready. Shake it.
This is actually warped slightly, probably because I keep putting it in the dishwasher.
I just really hope it doesn't splash your face.
So far, so good. This is actually a lot more work than it looks like.
Is it?
Yeah. You gotta be fit. Okay. I did get some on my pants.
Oh, but
it'll be okay. I want you to have some more ice.
Oh, thanks.
But I just want to make sure I got the same amount of liquor. Alright. This one's more. Here you go.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay.
All right.
We have to do the traditional cheers. You ready?
All right.
To David Sedaris.
To David Sedaris.
That's pretty good.
It is.
I like it. I'm pleasantly surprised. You know what it tastes like? It kind of tastes like bubblegum.
It does. It really does. It's not too Christmassy. It has a little.
I would drink this anyway.
Mm-hmm. It does taste like bubblegum. I can't untaste it.
I'm so sorry I said it.
Yeah, I approve.
I approve as well.
That's good.
So not only are we learning about authors, we're learning about cocktails at the
sure
same
are.
time. I've never actually had any of the drinks that we have had so far on this show.
Yes, you have.
Oh, the Dirty Shirley.
And the bourbon punch.
Oh, okay. Well, I've had half the drinks. In a year, let's check
You just
back.
don't remember it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a fair point. Okay. So what sort of work did you do to prepare for this David Sedaris podcast?
I was first introduced to David Sedaris. I don't know when. Gosh, it's been a... Oh, I know. So there used to be this really adorable bookstore here in town.
What was the name of it?
Pablo's on Market.
Yes.
It was a bookstore and a little coffee shop. So for a brief little moment in my life, I would work there, and I worked for the most adorable couple that I've known all my entire life, Hubert and Carolyn Crow. And I remember shelving books and just looking around on the bookshelves and seeing this Me Talk Pretty one day and reading, the summary on it. And I was like, I think I can get down with David Sedaris. And read his book. And this Me Talk Pretty one day it's been a long time since I've read it. But if I remember correctly, it's a lot about his upbringing. Mm-hmm. And the first chapter, I read back over it earlier, and it talks about how they sent him to speech because he had a lisp.
Yes.
And he talks about how he's like, why are all the boys in speech, all the boys that are in speech are the ones who don't like football? He's like, I think they're like picking out the ones they think are going to be homosexual, Yeah. And, he said it just happened to be we all had what they called a lazy tongue. And he's like, that's funny because my sister has a lazy eye.
So Wikipedia refers to him as an American humorist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a funny guy.
But he's very self-deprecating.
Yeah, and he's also got I was trying to actually write down adjectives earlier today. He's got a biting sense of humor.
He does.
Very much dry, and sometimes it might cross over the line into macabre on occasion. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was listening to...
He loves a vulgar joke, and he'll admit that. He loves a vulgar joke. He loves pushing the boundary of almost political correctness in a way.
Yeah. So he... do you know who Chuck Palahniuk is?
At all.
He wrote Fight Club, Invisible Monsters, Choke, which I do not recommend to anyone ever. Don't read it.
Well,
yeah.
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah. But he has a lot of, I use the word crunchy, but, I think what I mean is cringy. Really super
crunchy.
Super crunchy books.
Yeah.
And so I was actually just kind of researching David Sedaris, and I looked up Joe Rogan, David Sedaris, because I thought, I don't think David Sedaris would ever go on Joe Rogan. I wanted to see. And who came up was Chuck Palahniuk. And I actually hunted down the transcript for that episode. It's episode 1158. And I did a Control F. I found where he was talking about David Sedaris. And I'm not going to tell the anecdote.
Look at you.
I know. I'm a researcher.
Dang.
A sleuther, if you will. Is it a sleuther?
A sleuther.
I had a lisp when I was a kid.
Did you?
But no one told me. No one ever mentioned it my entire life until I was in 6th grade.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't mention it. I had a best friend. And she had a lisp, and I was like, you have a lisp? She was like, you do too. And I was like, what?
Note to self, Jen is not self-aware.
Not at all.
So here, I'll give you a little...
I got to finish Chuck.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So in the transcript, I read over, they were talking about banned books and people being canceled and how authors such as Palahniuk and perhaps Sedaris can sometimes cross this boundary or make these jokes we would consider extremely politically incorrect or inappropriate or crude, like hurtful. And he recounted an anecdote that Sedaris told to a live crowd because he does a lot of touring. And that it was so awful that people were actually crying instead of laughing. Like,
what?
Yeah, out of sadness.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
But I will say this about David. He, and he talks about this in some interviews that I was reading over. He will throw out some things that will make you go,
yeah.
Like, oh, wait, where's this going to go?
Yeah.
But he does bring it to a point where there's a poignant ending where there's some sort of a meaning behind it. So you forgive him in the end.
Well, in this one case, they didn't. But Palahniuk says he was basically the sacrificial lamb, and he laughed heartily at this horrible story. The story was so bad that the hate transmuted from David Sedaris to Chuck Palahniuk.
He was the sacrifice.
So what he was saying was Sedaris told him, I use my tours as a testing mechanism.
Yes, and we went to see him.
Yeah.
He said that. He was like, I'm testing out these. And what struck me about him on the tour was how nervous he acted.
Yeah.
He was like shaking, because we were really close, and he was like shaking, and then something wouldn't get a laugh, and he'd be like, oh, well. It's just very sad.
And he wasn't. Okay, so I'll tell you this. I had never read Sedaris. I remember seeing this book in an airport. It is called When You Are Engulfed in Flames.
Oh, I've never heard of that one.
It was published in 2008. So I remember seeing this, and I thought, that looks really interesting. I want to read him one day. And I never picked up a book until you suggested Me Talk Pretty one day to me.
Yeah.
And I did read probably half of it. And I kind of decided I didn't really like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when we went and saw him in person in Huntsville, I left, and even when he opened up, I thought, I am not going to enjoy this. Like you said, he was so nervous.
He was very nervous.
Not personable.
Yeah. This was the first tour he's done in a while because of COVID. So
that was right, yeah.
He made that comment.
Well, I left there thinking, okay, he's really funny.
Yeah.
So even though he's not an in-person person, he's a funny guy.
It's interesting because he seems as though he has a little bit of social anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Don't we all?
Yeah. But he also, in an interview, was talking about, here it is. Because people behave differently when they're not worried about any social consequences or judgments. Are you finding that the gap between what people will laugh at and what they would admit to finding funny is getting more pronounced? So when you were telling me that, it reminded me, like, I do laugh at jokes that are on the verge of being politically incorrect. I mean, it is funny.
Sometimes, depending on the
Sometimes
joke.
It's funny just because it's like, when people push.
Yeah, the envelope.
The envelope. Slapstick does not make me laugh, but that sometimes does. And he says in that, he's like, it's interesting that he went to a bookstore event, said he read the funniest bits from his diary, and he got nothing. There was not a pin drop. You couldn't hear a pin drop. And he says, then people afterwards said, my face hurt from laughing so hard. And he's like, wait, what? You weren't laughing. And he said, the funny thing is people were laughing, but they were afraid to laugh out loud. You go into a dark comedy club and people will laugh harder because they don't feel judged.
Yeah.
But in a bookstore, they're like, oh, should I laugh at that joke? That was a little edgy.
Yeah. So his books, it kind of seems like like with Me Talk Pretty one day, his first one, it was a lot of personal essays, all the way up until kind of recently. So I know A Carnival of Snackery and The Best of Me, and I believe there's another one that are actually written in diary format, which is what he read aloud to us when we were in the theater. And I also think, too, because I picked up a couple of the books that were in diary format, and I just have this assumption that you have to really know and understand David Sedaris to get the humor in the diaries.
I agree. Like his latest book, I don't remember what the name of it is.
That was Happy Go Lucky.
Is it Happy Go Lucky? Yeah. It's a lot about his father. And he has a very complicated relationship, or had.
Yeah. So his dad died last year at the age of 98.
Yeah. And he talks very openly about how his father just was mean.
Did you read that NPR article about him?
No.
It's pretty rough. This is something that stood out to me in that article. It's all about his dad, after the death of his dad, and he kind of talked about and touched on before. So he didn't really open up about his dad in his essays until after his dad died. And he lived to be 98. So this is very recently. So Happy Go Lucky is going to be the first book where he's truly open about what type of person his father was. And he said The way I've always made sense of things is to write about it.
Yeah.
When my mom died, I wrote something out loud, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase here. And his dad said, basically, I want you to do that for me when I die. And so he put something together, but he read a little something, and there wasn't a single good thing in what he read, he says. It was just about how he used to ram other cars at the supermarket when somebody took his parking space, and the comments he made to people and how nobody understood his jokes. And he says, people say, I know you're going to miss him terribly, and the fact is that they will miss him. As for why, they'll have to get back to you on that. What he says that really I loved so much, especially kind of, I don't know, we all have sordid histories and sordid family members, and so you don't really want to oust them to people you don't know because you do love them.
Well, yeah.
But it says, you can still love a difficult person. Your mind as an adult should be big enough to hold all of these things.
I screenshotted the same thing.
It
spoke to me as well. What he's not saying here, though, is he's saying, as children, our mind is not big enough to hold all of these things.
Yeah.
But he does say, as an adult, we should be able to separate that.
He's obviously a very intelligent person, but he somehow got this trauma. He processed it enough to maintain a relationship with his father throughout his father's entire life. And then even after death, he's eloquently speaking on the fact that, my dad wasn't a great person.
Right.
But he was my dad.
Right. And he will say that the greatest gift my dad ever gave me was a great character to write about. You know?
Very true. I mean, I laughed a lot reading him some of the things.
Well, he has an essay on euphemisms. And it's like, what are the things that people say when you have a death in the family or whatever? They say, they're in a better place now.
Yeah.
Or they're looking down on you. And David says, and he pushes the envelope. He's like, I'm pretty sure he's looking up at me. But did you know that also he had a sister who committed suicide?
Yeah, Tiffany.
Yeah. And there were claims that the father had molested her.
With things that David said aloud about his father that he witnessed that. He said, we don't know if that really happened, but he's certainly not helping himself.
He definitely crossed some lines. Yeah.
Pretty inappropriate. And actually reading it, I was kind of disgusted. But
so what a complicated relationship.
I know. It invokes this real sense of rawness internally because this man is open kimono. He is sharing. You know what? I thought about that too.
His poor boyfriend.
They've been together 31 years.
I know. And what does he call him? He calls him Congressman Prude. Is that what did you read that?
Yeah, I did,
He calls him Congressman Prude because he's like, mild-mannered one. He's more private, whatever.
Hugh.
Yeah, Hugh. And he says, just to explain David to you, he's like, if David were to leave the room, I would not read his diary. If I were to leave the room, he'd so read my diary.
But the thing about David is he'll publish that diary for all.
I know, right? He doesn't care. Read it.
Yeah.
That's why he does it.
I know. And it's interesting, but, as I've said 7,000 times, and we'll say 7,000 times more, in my research about David, I read a ton of articles, a lot of interviews, and what they really talked about most, they talked about his clothing obsession.
Yeah.
I think they called him a clothes horse. Yeah.
Clothes horse?
Yeah. I was literally Googling the names of these labels that he was throwing out, and I just thought, wow, we are not the same people. We don't live in the same world.
Can I recognize your clothing brand?
Yeah, no, it's like this Japanese artist, and I was like, I'm so uncultured.
Oh, how funny.
I am so uncultured.
Yeah, at his show, he walked out in culottes.
That's his thing.
Yeah.
He says he's really into culottes.
Yeah.
But so
he pulls it off well.
He does. And a lot of what they focus on in these interviews is not only his clothes, but they talked a lot about kind of just his viewpoint on myriad topics. They ask a lot of his personal life and personal opinions, and a touch, maybe almost never, on his books, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Funny. Yeah, because there's so much depth to him. And also, if you ask about his books, what are you asking about him? You're asking about. I mean, it's one and the same.
Right.
Do you remember the story he told at the show he went to? He brought up an essay. He said he hadn't published it yet. He was just trying it out. Do you remember that was about him traveling overseas?
Yes. Like Kazakhstan, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was with a traveling partner, and just the absurdities of them trying to find their way in Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
With taxi drivers and hoteliers.
But he kind of ties it back into American privilege, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he did.
The ending, I remember, it was moving because he built this up about how difficult it is to navigate these foreign countries, whatever. And then he's like, oh yeah, but America's so bad. He brought it back to where it was like, oh, well, yeah, you're right. America's We're pretty fortunate.
Yeah, and he did it in a very stealth kind of way. So you're sitting there thinking, oh, wait, wow, he convicted me a little bit. Because he's setting it up as he is actively complaining about all the difficulties. Yeah. And then at the end, he makes that witty kind of comment that you don't really catch it unless you catch it.
Yeah, it's something about like...
Basically, all of my entire audience sucks is kind of the way I've left. You're all these privileged jerks who would say these things in this place and when in reality...
Yeah, so catch yourself next time.
Yeah. Do you remember also it was somebody's birthday? And he was He was engaging with the audience.
They were asking questions.
Yeah, and he was like, it's my friend's birthday. Will you tell her happy birthday?
And he says, F no.
Yeah. And then like we were all kind of like waiting.
I was like, dang, he was not kidding. He moved on to the next person.
The punchline never came.
But then when he walked off the stage, he goes, and happy birthday to that guy. Like, it was like, he like stretched that punchline out really far.
Yeah. I was like, ooh, I'm uncomfortable.
It was very uncomfortable.
Because it wasn't
it was almost like he was offended.
It wasn't a robust crowd either.
It wasn't.
We were super intimately close with Sedaris. Oh my God, the lights were on. We were all staring at each other.
Like, it was extremely quiet because it's literally just a podium, and he walks out and he's like, how do I start this? Here we go, you know.
August 14th.
Let me read from my diary.
Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible.
It was awkward for sure.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it.
But it was endearing. The way he acted, you know, he was nervous, anxious. And then he kind of found himself towards the end of it and kind of got his groove.
So I was reading on his website that he does over 100 cities every year. So when you factor in all that travel, I mean, he spends, 2/3 maybe?
I don't know.
A lot of time on the road and going to these places.
You know, he also has been nicknamed Pigpen in one of his... So he has like 4 houses in like 4 different places. London and North Carolina and France, maybe?
Yeah.
But he has this habit of like just picking up trash on the side of the road. And somebody nicknamed him Pigpen, and then they named like a garbage truck after him in his honor.
Yeah, I saw that.
So sweet.
Good on him.
I know.
Making Mother Earth greener for all.
Yeah, it's like his little thing.
Who would think that would come out of someone so sardonic, though?
I know.
We all have hidden facets, maybe.
That's true.
I wonder what he did before he actually hit it off. I don't know if I read.
Oh, I know.
What?
Okay. Well, hold on. Let me get back to it. So he was discovered in a Chicago club. He was like reading some of his essays. And he was discovered in a Chicago club by radio host Ira Glass. So Glass asked him to appear on his weekly local program, The Wild Room. And so he did that. And then the success on The Wild Room led to his NPR debut on December 23rd, 1992, when he read a radio essay on Morning Edition called Santaland Diaries, which described his purported experiences as an elf at Macy's department store during Christmas in New York. So that's really what launched him, because then it says that he became like a minor phenomenon, reading that every year. And then he got a book deal, and then the rest is history.
So he sounds very New York. So I was like, I just want to make sure he's from New York. And I looked him up, and he was born in New York, but ended up moving to Raleigh, I think in his teens. Because he definitely never lost that New York accent.
No, yeah, I definitely did not. You're right. The other interesting thing was, for a long time he was categorized as nonfiction. Jen's going to know a lot more about this. I'm just going to give her the information and let her run with it.
That's true.
So he was published as nonfiction. So then, I don't know who Mike Daisy is.
I don't either. Let's look.
So it says, in the wake of a controversy involving Mike Daisy's dramatization and embellishing of his personal experiences at Chinese factories during an excerpt of his theatrical monologue for This American Life. What a run-on sentence, Wikipedia.
Wikipedia is not always the most trustworthy source.
Well, here, you fact check me. We need a fact checker.
We are the fact checkers. We don't have money for
We're hiring fact checkers.
That was actually our second
Call the library if you would like to be a fact checker. You'll get paid in maybe a drink and probably some verbal abuse.
Actually, text Anna. Okay, so just to let you know.
Actually, text Anna.
Mike Daisy is an American monologist.
Like he is a money expert?
A monologist. He gives monologues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me, why am I not getting paid to be a monologist?
There's actually a term for someone who gives a monologue?
He's a monologist. Okay, his monologue, The Agony and the Ecstasy of Steve Jobs about the labor conditions under which Apple devices are made. Yeah. I am straight up going to start looking up hiring monologists.
So after that whole debacle with Mike Daisey, new attention was paid to the veracity of Sedaris' nonfiction stories. NPR labeled stories from Sedaris, such as Santaland Diaries, as fiction, while This American Life fact-checks stories to the extent that memories go. Okay. And long ago conversations can be checked. So now, like, because he's like, listen, yeah, of course I embellish my stories. Who doesn't embellish their stories? Right. But they're true stories that have nuggets of truth to them that I just have to, like, throw in some extravagance to. He's like, I am extravagant.
If it's a biographical essay, obviously you're going to put it in the 813s. Come on.
The 813s.
I mean, look.
I don't even know what that means. Is that the Dewey Decimal System?
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. So, you got your nonfiction. You've got genres within your nonfiction. The 800s literature. A lot of essayists end up in the 800s. And I don't think we are able to be the judges of particularly what portions of David Sedaris' biographical essays. Again. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
So I guess somebody fact-checked him and was like, this one's not true. Well, I mean, okay, in one of the last books of David's that I read, there was an essay about two neighboring families that were sending Christmas cards to each other, and they were, like, trying to outdo each other, like, having the most extravagant outfits on. And then one of them, he says, adopts a child just for the family picture so they can say that look at our child we adopted. And then it goes on to where one of them was like, I got eaten by a tiger out in the jungle trying to save my child or whatever. And it's like, it gets very gory. But the point is, it's like, hey guys, how far are you going to go to outdo your neighbor? Like, and that's so true,
Well, it's another.
So of course it's not real, but it's
a life rhetoric buried into a hilarious essay. Quit with the antics, people. Stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. We don't care about your kid's latest outfit, whatever. Okay, but just so our readers are aware, there is an article in The Atlantic about the sad and infuriating Mike Daisey case. Throwback the monologist. So he did his own thing, and then people hate him now, so.
Not a monogamist. A monologist. 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 Okay.
Actually, I never heard that until today, just now in this room.
Me either. See? Informing the world, or
the masses.
Athens. Yeah. Maybe.
Like, I mean,
5 listeners.
Excuse me, we have a listener in Germany. Shout out to the person in Germany.
It's got to be somebody we know.
I actually don't know anyone that lives in Germany.
I'm so sorry. You guys are listening to this across the pond.
Is that your German accent? That was really good.
Oh, so what's funny is someone left a review and talked about how amazing Jen is. And it's like, was there another chick on that show?
She didn't say that.
No, I'm kidding. So everybody, please go and leave me a review.
That was Anna. Okay.
Are you about to pause it?
No, I was going to make another drink.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay.
Jen, your phone's blowing up.
So everyone in my entire family is consistently texting me about the biggest news. There's the buzz. The biggest news in Pascagoula, my hometown.
Oh, this is going to be juicy.
Yeah. The craziest thing of the season. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Jerry Lee's at the grocery store was just bought out by the Jubilee.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And all over the internet, all I see is, guys, I'm not going to be able to say I'm going by Jerry Lee's.
By internet, she means Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Dude, when I was growing up, you could actually smoke cigarettes in Jerry Lee's. Yeah. Like the old folk with the white hair would be going down the freezer aisle with their misty white 20s. Yeah.
So why are they so upset?
I guess because that's what it has always been.
It's Jerry Lee's, right?
Yeah.
Aw.
Okay, so Jerry and Wayne were brothers, right? So you go to Wayne Lee's.
Oh, wait, there's 2 grocery stores?
Yeah.
Stop it.
If you go to Wayne Lee's, you can get fishing gear and rainbow sandals.
Oh.
Along with your
Oh, so they're not competitive grocery stores.
Well, I don't know if there was like a familial split.
Wow.
And they were like,
this
no,
is juicy. Jen, what are you talking about?
Oh, you have a grocery store? Watch this, Jerry. I'm opening one, and I'm going to name it Wayne.
I'm going to keep up with this all week long.
I'll send you live updates.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think I've just gotten my 7th text message right now about Jerry. You know, these Santaland drinks. Wait. These naughty elves.
Taking us to Santaland.
Okay, so what all books have you actually read?
Me Talk Pretty One Day. I downloaded another one. I think it was Calypso. And I was reading on that one. The good thing about Sedaris is you can pick up the book and read a few essays and then put it down for a while if you want to. It's just easy reading. So I'll just pick it up off the shelf and just keep reading every once in a while.
And I read some of Me Talk Pretty One Day, and I also downloaded a very short audiobook, and it's called Chipmunk Meets Squirrel. And it's these stories are written from the point of view of an animal, but as if they're humans. Sort of, I guess, like the elf thing. And I was just like, dude, this is so weird. I'm not listening to it anymore. I just turned it off. But this was before I saw him in person and changed my mind about him. I feel like he has a very distinct style. We haven't mentioned the fact that his sister is Amy.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I know they wrote some plays together, but how did she come to fame?
Let's see. Why is Amy Sedaris famous? She's an American actress. What was she in?
I don't know. It says she's been active since 1990. So
wait a second. She was an elf? I told you. There is some connection between the Santaland. I swear there is.
Well, now I believe you. I never.
They seem to be very close, and most of his interviews he references her, and she's literally just Amy.
I read another essay that he wrote in the New Yorker called "And Now We Are Five." Did you read that one? That was poignant. It was about his sister Tiffany, who committed suicide, and how the opening of the story is when they were growing up. People would always say, "Oh, wow, 6 kids," and so he formulated his identity around there being
one
6 of them. Yeah. And it's a very poignant story about how they go and they're visiting the North Carolina home that he had purchased. And he was describing the kind of difficult relationship they all had with Tiffany.
Yeah, he was estranged from her before she passed.
And apparently he says in the story that at some point she was estranged with everyone.
She was troubled.
Yeah, very much. And he hadn't spoken to her in 8 years before she ended up committing suicide in 2008. And this person that he bought the home from says, "Oh, is that your sister over there?" And he said, "Yeah, and my sister on either side of her as well." And she goes, "Oh, and you have your brother. Wow, 5. Now that's a big family." So it kind of ends it out with they were 6 and then there were 5. It was very well written.
Yeah, it's interesting. He can be such a snarky little elf, and then he can be so poignant.
Yeah. Maybe the mark of a true humorist.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's an example of how he can be very snarky but then very poignant. So this is part of Santaland Diaries. This evening, I was sent to be a photo elf. Once a child starts crying, it's all over. The parents had planned to send these pictures as cards or store them away until the child has grown and can lie, claiming to remember the experience. Tonight, I saw a woman slap and shake her crying child. She yelled, "Rachel, get on that man's lap and smile or I'll give you something to cry about." Then she sat Rachel on Santa's lap and I took the picture, which supposedly means on paper that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, that everything is snowy and wonderful. It's not about the child or Santa or Christmas or anything, but the parents' idea of a world they cannot make work for them. Santaland Diaries. Look it up and listen to him read it. It's very, very funny, but very true.
Yeah. Okay, who are we going to do next time? Oh, we thought about doing Colleen Hoover.
Yeah.
Well, she is so hot right now.
She is. So there's a movie coming out, right?
Really?
Based on the book, It Ends With Us. Yeah, that was the first one of hers I ever read.
And then Verity.
It was good. I actually donated the first copy of Verity to the library.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
Someone told me to read it when it first came out.
Gosh, we must be the drivers in the market because she's all over the place.
Shit.
So tune in next time to hear us talk about Colleen Hoover and all of her wonderful, amazing books. And we'll have to decide a cocktail that goes along with Colleen.
Yeah. If you have an idea, let us know.
Yeah, let us text Anna.
Yeah, do.
Thank you so much for listening. This has been Between the Stacks.
After Hours. Cheers.
Naughty Elf.
You've been listening to Between the Stacks, After Hours, a podcast brought to you by the Athens-Limestone County Public Library. Join us next time for another conversation and a close-up look of a featured author and their work. To hear other recordings from our Library Voices podcast series, please visit the Athens-Limestone County Library website at alcpl.org. Library Voices is also now available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.